any DACA legislation. Also tonight, President Trump calling on Republican lawmakers to take control of the Russia witch hunt. None of the investigations have found a single shred of evidence of wrongdoing whatsoever, and yet the special counsel goes on, continues to waste time and taxpayer dollars and energy. And Congressman Francis Rooney joins us as well. He says the Department of Justice and FBI are simply, as he put it, off the rails and need to purge the deep state. He will join us here tonight as well. President Trump reportedly recertifying the Iranian nuclear deal this week. Sources tell Fox News that's because progress is being made on legislation to fix problems in the deal that the president has criticized for 2 years. We'll take it up with General Jack Keane. Our top story tonight, President Trump today saying any immigration deal that he signs must include funding for his promised southern border wall.
We need the wall for security. We need the wall for safety. We need the wall for stopping the drugs from pouring in. I would imagine that the people in the room, both Democrat and Republican, I really believe they're going to come up with a solution to the DACA problem, which has been going on for a long time, and maybe beyond that, immigration as a whole. But any solution has to include the wall, because without the wall, it all doesn't work.
President Trump's comments follow a San Francisco federal judge's ruling barring the Trump administration from phasing out the Obama-era DACA program. President Trump today blasted that injunction from the Clinton-appointed judge, saying this, quote, "It just shows everyone how broken and unfair our court system is when the opposing side in a case such as DACA always runs to the Ninth Circuit and almost always wins before being reversed by higher courts." The Trump administration's next move to seek a stay of that ruling from the Ninth Circuit or go straight to the Supreme Court. Our first guest tonight says President Trump was well within his rights to end DACA, and the ruling is the latest example of an activist judge imposing his political views. Joining us tonight, Congressman Andy Biggs, member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, good to have you here. And is it not frustrating to watch usually these left-wing judges try to intervene in the legislative process and overwhelm our political system?
Yes, Lou, it's good to be with you, but I can't agree more. I happen to live in Arizona, which unfortunately is in the Ninth Circuit, and I will just tell you, that circuit is out of control. That's why I introduced legislation to at least get Arizona out and create a new circuit, but I'll tell you, we have got to bring them to heel, and the only ways we can do that really are financially. That's one of our checks against the judiciary, but we could also call some of these judges in to impeachment even if we need to.
Yeah, and there hasn't been an impeachment. When I look at the rulings, I mean, some of it is as if it's from a distant and very strange land, not one of our most important circuit courts.
Yeah, I think they're so far off the reservation that everything they do there is viewed by people who live there as it's a political motivation. That's right. Why they're ruling the way they are. We get it. But you need to get off the bench if everything is going to be based on politics rather than on the law. That's just the way it is.
Well, let's turn to DACA itself, the case that's at the center of the controversial ruling. DACA, the president has moved against it. And yet Congress has not, in the time that he allotted, which was until March 5th, done anything to replace DACA or to make amends for what is what was an unconstitutional executive order on the part of President Obama, and what is a very, very complicated mess for those brought here illegally by their illegal immigrant parents.
Yeah, you know, here's the deal. President Trump did what he had to do. He basically said, look, I can't in good conscience exercise a power I don't have, like the previous president did. So he's given it back to Congress, which is where it should be. But DACA is not what people want. We get confused. What they really want is the DREAM Act. I mean, it's a complicated thing, I'll grant you that. But the DREAM Act is actually very simple. It says basically if you were brought here illegally, we're going to give you a path of amnesty and keep your family here and keep the chain migration in place. That's really what's going on. So when you hear people talk about DACA, that's generally what they want.
That's what the left wants. That's what
exactly
the Chamber of Commerce wants. But
yeah.
that isn't what the American people want, who in the most recent polling that we've looked at shows most people, first of all, illegal immigration isn't even close to the top of their list of issues and concerns. And secondly, most oppose amnesty, period.
Right. That's exactly right. The key for Republicans is we promised we'd build a wall. So we should be building the wall first. I mean, and if the White House says, which it did this week, that it would only take a year to build it, let's build it for a year. And then we can start talking about additional immigration programs, such as DACA, if that's what we want to do. But let's keep trust with the people first, and let's secure the border. And the best way to do that is with a physical barrier.
Did you see Senator Feinstein in that meeting in the cabinet room of the White House with the president? The first thing she did was say, well, let's just have a clean DACA bill, and then we'll guarantee that we'll move on to border security at a later date, a much later date. In 1986, with amnesty, President Reagan was rolled, and there was never any security measure applied to the border, despite his full-on amnesty in 1986.
Yeah, the first thing you learn when you come here is who you can trust and who you can't trust. And I'm just telling you right now, you better build the wall and get your security first. Then you can start cutting some deals on the other issues like DACA maybe. But don't give in on this. That's my position. And we're frankly moving to the Democrat talking points and putting the cart before the horse when you start talking DACA and amnesty. It
is strange that we're sitting here with all that has been accomplished by this president and his administration in the first year. Unprecedented results for any president. And suddenly we're talking about DACA, for crying out loud. The Judiciary Committee, which you are an important part, the proposal today to end I love the concept even of a visa lottery, chain migration, build the border wall, moving ahead with that proposal. What are the odds that a crackdown on sanctuary cities and the DACA 3-year renewable status, as you were suggesting there, while the wall is being built, what are the odds that it can win passage?
Well, I think they're pretty long odds if you want the truth, because you got to get it through the Senate, and I don't think you're going to get anything through the Senate, quite frankly. And I get back to the point, my colleagues on the other side, they don't just want DACA, they want the DREAM Act.
Right.
And so when we start talking, well, we want X, Y, and Z and this whole myriad of things, which are not bad, they're good things, good changes. In diversity lottery, that's a great thing. E-Verify, that's a great thing. But you know what? I don't think that the other side is going to be able to come along for a 3-year renewal DACA. Well, they want more than DACA. DACA, the way that's put in there is a 3-year renewal DACA, basically in perpetuity, which is a real problem for me. But they want the DREAM Act. They want a path to citizenship, and they want amnesty.
Well, a little history here, Congressman, for some of our audience who may not know. 2 people were in that room, Senator Durbin, along with Senator Feinstein, so maybe 3, I should say, and at the same time, Senator Menendez. We could have had a deal in 2006, in my judgment, in what was then called the Kennedy-McCain comprehensive immigration bill. We could have had a deal, except the left, in the person of 2 of those 3 people, insisted on chain migration. So there was the history of it, and we've got 20 of 30 million immigrants who've come to the country legally. 20 million of those, for those in the audience who don't know, were brought in not as immigrants, but brought in as part of the chain migration. It's really a stunning impact. Most immigrants come to this country as part of chain migration rather than being sought out for their skills, their talent, their education level.
Yeah, you're right, Lou, and that's part of a huge problem that we have in our country today. That's a remnant from the Teddy Kennedy change in the immigration policy in the 60s. Right. And so we've been going for basically almost 3 generations now with a focus on familial ties as opposed to what is really in the best interest of the United States of America. And that's our problem, and I'm sure hoping that we're not.
You know, there's just amazing developments today in Washington, D.C., and all focusing principally on DACA, but some on Iran and the Iranian nuclear deal. All of that and much more straight ahead. We're coming right back with it all. Stay with us. President Trump blasting the Russia witch hunt, calling it a Democratic hoax.
There has been no collusion. It's a Democrat hoax that was brought up as an excuse for losing an election.
Congressman Francis Rooney says the Russia probe is proof federal agencies need to be purged of their deep state bias. The congressman joins us here tonight. And powerful mudslides in Southern California. Rescuers and first responders are still searching for survivors. We'll have the full report next. Stay with us. The biggest revelation out of some 300 pages of Fusion GPS testimony that was released unilaterally by Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein yesterday is the curious claim somebody, quote, has already been killed over the Trump dossier. The Fusion GPS attorney who made that assertion offered no details whatsoever, no further word whatsoever, but the guessing game in Washington has already begun, the speculation running rampant. Given the discredited dossier detailed a supposedly sordid link between Trump and Russia, you might suppose a Russian could have been murdered over the document. In fact, there were at least 9 prominent Russians who were killed or died under mysterious circumstances in the months after President Trump had been elected. Some were diplomats or politicians, at least one, however, standing out to the internet super speculators because of his links to the Russian intelligence community. Last January, former KGB General Oleg Aravenkin was found dead in his car of an apparent heart attack, which in Moscow qualifies as a suspicious death. He was reportedly suspected of working with British spy Christopher Steele, as the speculators go. And so it goes. President Trump taking aim at Democratic California Senator Dianne Feinstein because she's the one who put out the Fusion GPS testimony over the objections and rules of the Judiciary Committee chairman. The president tweeted this morning, quote, "The fact that sneaky Dianne Feinstein, who has on numerous occasions stated that collusion between Trump and Russia has not been found, would release testimony in such an underhanded and possibly illegal way, totally without authorization, is a disgrace, must have tough primary." Well, joining me now, Republican Congressman from Florida, Francis Rooney, Vice Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, great to have you with us. What do you make of Senator Feinstein releasing unilaterally that document?
Well, it's highly unprecedented, and I don't know whether it's illegal or not. Yeah. But you know, the irony there is that she said she did it because the investigation was undermined, but the fact of the matter is she just undermined it a whole lot more and put out a lot more dots. The more of which you connect, the worse this thing looks.
Well, it is curious right now in Washington, where you have a number of people, they mean exactly the opposite of what they say. A very, very complex game is being played here. The president said it, in my opinion, absolutely correctly. Right now, we are watching the greatest witch hunt in American history. 5 congressional committees. We have, in addition to that, of course, the FBI and the special counsel. We've tallied up the amount of investigative time here. It's 6.5 years of total investigative time have been spent in looking for some sign of collusion, and there is no evidence yet. Yet the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker, the Republican Majority Leader of the Senate, Congressman, they will not stand with the President and say, end it now, because it's stupid, it's wasteful, and it is certainly acting in the exact opposite of the interest of the nation.
It certainly is, and in fact, Lou, the more they dig, the worse it gets for them. Now, what we keep finding out is more and more unaccountable, partisan, deep state behavior, people that think the end justifies the means, and that's not what we should expect out of our civil service. And I tell you, these dots keep connecting up. I think this is worse than Watergate for them.
I think it's worse than Watergate right now for the country, because this is an instance in which, without any evidence, a special counsel was brought to bear against the duly elected President of the United States. And without evidence, after all of these committees, the FBI, the special counsel's investigation, as I said, 6.5 years of investigative time, they continue to hound this president to frustrate his policies, his administration, and do so with the complicity of the left-wing media and, as you say, the deep state, as well as the establishments of both political parties.
Well, if you want to talk about criminality, let's talk about Project Cassandra, where President Obama pulled the DEA off of Hezbollah just to satisfy Iran. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton's emails and now Huma Abedin's emails. From what I understand, releasing classified documents or taking them out of a classified facility doesn't require intent.
Correct. And it also, extreme carelessness is a synonym for, frankly, gross negligence, which is actionable in and of itself. The semantic game was immaterial to whether or not charges should have been brought. They should have been brought.
Yeah, when you connect the dots that it was the agent Strozak that came up with that recommendation to Comey to reduce the description of Hillary Clinton's behavior, he's the one that had the, quote, insurance to keep President Trump from getting elected that they discussed in a high-ranking DOJ's official's office.
Yet it is the special counsel going after this president, his administration, and the Republican leadership, frankly, doing no better than the Democratic leadership, because they will not stand up and say it is enough and it has to end now. Do you think they'll ever find the guts, the integrity to do so?
Well, I hope so. I thought Senator Grassley stepped up last week.
Right.
I think that Chairman Nunes stepped up last week. Hopefully, Attorney General Sessions is going to get in the game and do some serious internal review of what's going on in the deep state.
Yeah, one can only hope that the Attorney General will awaken. Thank you very much, Congressman. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is this: do you believe the future of DACA should be in the hands of President Trump and the Congress, not activist left-wing judges? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. I'd like to hear from you on this question, as we do all questions. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs. Tonight, at least 17 people have been killed. 24 people are missing after the devastating mudslides in Southern California. More than 100 homes were also destroyed. Heavy rain pounding hillsides stripped of plant life from recent wildfires. And on Wall Street, stocks ending the winning streak. The Dow down 17 points from a record high set yesterday. The S&P down 3. The Nasdaq down 10. Volume on the big board, 3.4 billion shares. Investors concerned China may slow or altogether stop its purchases of U.S. Treasuries. This as yields on 10-year Treasuries rose for a fifth day in a row, the highest yield since last March, 2.5%. And a reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, the leftist judiciary once again going after President Trump, joining open border Dems and rhinos who stand in his way. We take it up in my commentary. Here next, much more straight ahead. Well, now we return to the issue of DACA and the latest intervention by an activist federal judge, U.S. District Court Judge William Alsup, an appointee of William Jefferson Clinton, as a matter of fact. He has acted to temporarily block the Trump administration from phasing out DACA until litigation plays out or Congress comes up with a legislative solution. One of the lead plaintiffs in that case is none other than University of California president and former Obama DHS Secretary Janet Napolitano. she in fact helped create DACA in the first place. Constitutional law professor Josh Blackman in the National Review slammed the liberal judge's decision as, quote, an amateur act of punditry. The White House calling the decision outrageous, and President Trump blasting our broken court system, accusing opponents of running to the Ninth Circuit, the appellate court that will hear the case if it's appealed. The leftist Ninth Circuit has already targeted the Trump administration over its travel bans and funding cuts for sanctuary cities. However, the Supreme Court has overturned the Ninth Circuit Court's decisions 80% of the time. Let's be clear. The federal courts are filled with Dems who are committed to the left and judicial activism. In many cases, they're committed to subverting the Trump presidency and his administration. And as much as the president wants to work meaningfully with the Dems, it is clear he faces what is simply an entrenched deep state, aligned with both the Dems and the Republican establishment, who together mean to disrupt the president and his policies at every opportunity, no matter what he does. And let me repeat, the head of the biggest business lobby in the country, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, yesterday talked with Bret Baier for just about 7 minutes, an eternity in television time, about all that the president has achieved in his first year, about all the great things that are happening in our economy in this country. But it is instructive that not even once did Donahue even mention the president by name while talking about 4% economic growth, historic stock market gains, about $7 trillion worth since the president was elected, a 4% unemployment rate, historic tax reform. By the way, remember, President Trump in tax reform gave American business a 40% tax cut, and the head of the biggest business lobby wouldn't even mention his name. The moral of the story is obvious. No matter what this president does, it'll never be enough for the establishment and never enough to win either their favor or their support. Our quotation of the evening from Abraham Lincoln, he said this: "We, the people, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution." We're coming right back. Stay with us. South Korean President Moon says President Trump is responsible for the North Korea talks.
I just spoke to President Moon. He's very thankful for what we've done. Hopefully it'll lead to success for the world, not just for our country, but for the world.
We take up the president's major contribution and strong stance on North Korea with General Jack Keane. And these fearless drivers pulling off the longest truck jump ever. You might want to fasten your seatbelts for the epic Guinness World Record stunt. We'll be right back with that, at least the video, and you don't want to miss a moment. Stay with us. President Trump is expected to certify the Iranian deal ahead of the key deadline Friday. Sources tell Fox News President Trump doesn't want to recertify the deal, but will hold his nose and do so because Congress is making progress in his judgment on legislation to fix what the president believes is, at the very best, a highly flawed agreement, or as he said on the campaign trail, the worst deal he's ever seen. Joining me now, Fox Business senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane, retired four-star Army general, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Lou.
The president, is it the right thing to do in your judgment to recertify, holding his nose, as the White House put it?
Yeah, I think it's about right. But, you know, what's happening is congressional opinion and world opinion is turning against the Iranians. We're 3 years into this deal, Lou. And you know, I mean, the purpose of this thing was supposedly to get the Iranians to change their malign behavior and act as a responsible nation. So in the 3 ensuing years, their malign behavior has increased. They're building ballistic missiles. They killed 20-plus protesters. They put 3,500 of them in jail. This is what the Iranians are doing. So I think where we are a few months later is the congressional mood is changing. And if they can fix the nuclear deal, that's a better answer.
Is it your judgment that it can be fixed legislatively?
Yeah. Here's what they can do. The so-called sunset clauses, which gives Iran a nuclear threshold capability in 10 years and actually weapons capability in 15.
Right.
Take that out entirely and make where we are right now in terms of enriched uranium permanent. And secondly, put into the deal an inspection and verifiable regime. All military bases have got to be able to be inspected on a no-notice basis. And we can get something like that in there and also bring some of the other countries that signed the deal. We may have something.
It seems incredible to think that an American president created such a deal and signed such a deal without having the ability to inspect those facilities, without the military bases being included, and other key areas that could possibly be development sites for nuclear weaponry.
Their major research facility is at a military base,
right? And
we don't have the authority to inspect it.
Can we change who does the inspection? Because the IAEA has not been always reliable.
I'm not certain we'll be able to have that kind of leeway to be able to change who does the inspection, but I think we can put some conditions down that would guarantee that those inspections would be done better than what they have been in the past.
Very quickly, North Korea, talks moving ahead. We're going to see, I don't know if Kim Jong-un will be at the Olympics or not, but I mean, the South Korean president giving Mr. Trump full credit for those talks being underway. Your thoughts on progress and possibility?
The North Koreans go into it trying to buy time, get some goodwill, to be sure. And also, I suspect they feel some pressure because of the economic sanctions. Mm-hmm. I do think, look, talking is better than shooting. That's the reality. And the president's instincts are to negotiate. I think we may see him at some point enter in negotiations with the North Koreans and the South Koreans. And there may be a deal in the making. And certainly it's a lot better than the two choices in front of us that are right now, either war or accept a nuclearized North Korea.
If he can pull that off, the Nobel Peace Prize committee had better with pure alacrity and dispatch get him the Nobel Peace Prize, because that will be quite a result. General, always great to see you.
Good talking to you, Lou.
Thanks so much. Please roll the video now and watch as this big old truck, whoa, yes, you saw that correctly, soaring over the ramp, just narrowly clearing the speeding Lotus Formula One race car. The incredible stunt, by the way, working its way into the Guinness World Records for the longest ramp jump by a truck, nearly 84 feet, and mercifully plenty high enough. Up next, rhinos running for the exits as Congress gears up for the midterms. We'll have a full report for you straight ahead on which seats, Republican and Democratic, are in play. Stay with us. More congressmen are retiring than at any time in more than 2 decades. California Congressman Darrell Issa today adding his name to the growing list of rhinos not seeking re-election this year. Fox News Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel with our report.
I came to Congress for a 4-year tour, and I stayed for now going on 18.
California Republican Congressman Darrell Issa is the latest in a wave of congressional departures. Issa rejected a suggestion that his district could go to a Democrat in November.
The economy says everything about the policies that my party and this president helped champion, and so it's a good time to go out on top.
At this stage, 46 House members, 32 Republicans, 14 Democrats are retiring or running for other office. The number of Republican departures is the most for one party since 1994, during President Clinton's first term, when the GOP seized control of Congress in the Republican Revolution. This year's departures include 7 current committee chairmen. So Speaker Paul Ryan and Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy must now deal with a substantial loss of institutional knowledge. McCarthy downplayed the significance of veteran lawmakers leaving.
Are there more Republicans? Yes, because there's more Republican members. We will bring more people in. It'll be successful in that, and that's the uniqueness that we have. The competition makes even people better.
However, McCarthy and other California Republicans are likely to face some heat back home after the tax package limited the state and local deduction in a high-tax state. There are also 3 Republican senators retiring, including Chairman Orrin Hatch and Bob Corker. And Democrats continue attacking the tax package.
The Republican majority, which conveniently forgot its long history of opposing deficits when passing a $1.5 trillion tax bill, cannot in good conscience turn around and complain about deficits here.
One veteran House lawmaker in a competitive district worries about holding on to the GOP majority in the fall.
This political climate right now is about as bad as it could be for GOP members in moderate districts. We see the future, and it ain't pretty.
Democrats are watching these retirements with big plans to turn these seats from red to blue, now that their candidates won't be taking on an incumbent. On Capitol Hill, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
We'll see. Up next, the left-wing national media suddenly praising President Trump over a bipartisan immigration meeting. And the president noticed.
Got great reviews by everybody other than 2 networks who were phenomenal for about 2 hours. Then after that, they were called by their bosses.
We'll take up the border wall, DACA, and more. Ed Rollins, Michael Goodwin join me right after these words. Stay with us. We'll be right back.